Hey everyone, this is the launch event for my first novel, my second book, Demons of Eminence, which is being published by the Fellow Traveler series and actually printed by P.S. Hudson. Both those representatives are here tonight. We have a really exciting lineup for you. My friends from all over the country are here. So thanks for everyone for joining. We have people from DC, Texas, Seattle, Fresno, and I think Anna is in Los Angeles. So I'm really glad. And then James is also here as well tonight. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. I am really excited to have you all here and just to be reading tonight. So the novel is available for purchase from P.S. Hudson. I'll drop a link in the chat in a little bit, so you can get a hard copy of it. And Patrick Kiley, who's is actually the printer, he's here tonight. He's going to say a couple words about how it's actually printed. Just because sometimes people are like, "Oh, that's really cool, you self-publish," and I'm like, "No, bitch, it's actual like, this is actual thing." Nothing against self-publishing. I've self-published some stuff before, but I don't want Patrick's labor to go by invisibly. Um,
Oh,
so
very cool.
yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. So did create a playlist for tonight. I won't be able to play any of the songs on the Zoom because it'll get flagged on YouTube. But what's really cool about the playlist is it's all songs that I wrote that were really important to me during the writing of this book. I wrote it over the course of 2 years, just starting with my editor, Matthew Stadler. And but I actually started writing it at the Bard MFA. So the playlist is here. There's all kinds of genres at play. And I actually featured and really loved four bands from the Inland Empire, where the book is based and where I'm from. So those bands are Knights Templar, Barote the Musical,
Mm.
Tombe LaVey, and Smiling Beth, who's actually now in New York City. And I ordered two custom thongs from her, and I look forward to. She does a lot of things. I look forward to receiving those soon. You can find, I'll drop this link in the chat in a little bit as well. You can find other books that I've written, and chapbooks that I've written on my home page. And so I've also am the author of Bareback Nightfall, which was put out by Noemi Press. It's my first collection of poetry. It's kind of visual, and it's in a related universe as this book. I'm also the editor of a magazine at Santa Barbara City College. It's a creative writing magazine, and our submissions are actually open. We would love to have you. We would love to feature you. We're actually collaborating with the graphic design department on a print issue. So we had a print issue last year, in addition to an online issue. Mel, Carmen Jimenez, and other writers who are eluding me, Juan Felipe Herrera, among other students, have been published in the online in Open Fruit. So check it out. I hope you really enjoy it. So tonight is to just like to launch the book and as we before we hit the new year. And I wanted to kind of show you some of the images from the world that this book was written. So over the past year or two, I kind of sought out different sanctuaries across the US as I tried to write this book. For this first 6 months, it was kind of a struggle, and I was not even sure if the book would get written. But one, one day I found myself in Washington, D.C., um, and that kind of changed my world and opened up my life to kind of what it means to be gay and queer for me on my own road. So this is from there was actually a rainstorm in DC, and it's from the second floor of Uproar Bar. And then we have, so the book is set in the Inland Empire. I think someone has their mic on. But this book is set in the Inland Empire. Um, it's set in the Inland Empire, and so this is kind of like a hazy picture. You get a sense of the desert, you get a sense of the morning light, And one of the interesting things about the that I just want to share with you is that when I was born, there were no warehouses in the Inland Empire. One of the main draws was the industry. In fact, one of the last scenes of Terminator 2 was actually filmed in Fontana, where I was born. And now there's over 1 billion square feet of warehouses in the Inland Empire. And some have called it the shipping supercenter of the world. So that's actually kind of important to the book. Another thing to share with you is this picture my mom shared of me this morning. I told my family that I've been reading today. Of course, my mom found a really amazing picture of me. So I was born and raised in the Inland Empire, but the book is told through the perspective of a nurse who is from New York, and he flies out to the Inland Empire in hopes of getting a job in Los Angeles at the height of the pandemic. Another place that was really important to me is, of course, West Hollywood. One of the cool things that has happened over the course of my this past year is I met a bunch of friends who love electronic dance music as much as I do, and we've gone to EDC together and we go out together. And one of the cool things about LA is it has some of the most amazing sound venues in the world. So that's been really exciting. Another image, New Orleans was really fun for all the wrong reasons. I was there for Southern Decadence and other cool stuff. And then here's one last, here's another image of one of the venues in LA. You can see how it's very immersive, and the kind of crowd that it draws. And then the story actually takes place in a backyard. Much of it takes place in a backyard that was actually very dear to me growing up. It belonged to my friends Arturo and Javier. And one of the things I wanted to do with this book, and one of the things that's so cool about writing fiction, is that I could bring all these different worlds together in a way that makes sense to me, but I'm also privileged to. I grew up in the Inland Empire. I've gone to these really amazing raves, around the world. And I had an amazing education at the Bard MFA and at Berkeley. And it just kind of was really cool to kind of stumble across all of them and bring them all together. And then just two last places that were really important to me. One was Oaxaca. I spent last summer there studying Spanish. And one of the things that was really cool about Oaxaca is that it actually has a similar desert kind of geography and biome as the Inland Empire. And then this last picture is from
Inland Empire.
Booth
And then
Down,
this last picture is
which is a techno club in Mexico City in La Reforma. So that's kind of the world of the book that I kind of want to share little slices of with you before we get started. Um, I do want to pass the microphone to my wonderful editor, Matthew Stadler. Matthew, are you ready to get down?
Yeah.
I feel that I could kind of throw things at Matthew without warning because he made me write the book and it came out like a dream. So thank you, Matthew, for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, made you write the book. That is a high accolade. That book was in you. Josh and I met because a man named Dan Carmel, he was the partner of a writer named Bo Houston. And Bo is somebody I knew in the 90s. I met him through Kevin Killian. He's a writer who wrote 4 books. He died young, 1993. And Dan has decided to make part of Bo's legacy be a prize to younger writers to encourage them to pursue things that might not be immediately evident in their world. So I think Roberto Tejada told me about Josh's work, and Josh was the one who won the first Bo Houston Prize, again from Dan. And I'm involved because, well, I wanted to publish Bo's work And so I asked Dan for permission to republish a book called The Dream Life. And when we got to talking, we both realized that what Bo had to offer wasn't only his work, but this kind of legacy of um, devoting yourself to writing in the worst circumstances, devoting yourself to writing regardless of who told you you had permission, regardless of who said that the thing you were focusing on is of broad interest. And Bo was especially skilled at looking at undervalued populations, people who are not the star, looking at people who are in the periphery and on the side, and brought incredible insight and love to that observation. So part of the prize was looking for a writer who is kind of doing that already. And I read Josh's poetry collections. He showed the Bareback Nightfall. And then there's two chapbooks as well, California Voltage and XXO. How do you say the other one? Oh, you're muted.
It's supposed to be like a radio station, so it's XXOXFM.
Yeah. So all three of them, you read them. You should get them. They're wonderful to live with. And in them are people, lives, milieus, and an incredible curiosity and love. And this is what drew me to Josh as a writer, was this predisposition to love. Just that whatever you're faced with, and as you move fast through a world, that you are meeting it with this sense of love and curiosity and veneration. So my instinct to say, well, Josh, you should write a novel, was simply because he'd been writing novels. He'd been writing whole lives. And he's done that now again. I was happy and privileged to accompany him on this 2 years or so. And it was a wilderness. It was, darkness and nothing, and then sudden bright light. And one of the things you'll find in the book, which really sustained me as a reader and editor, was you constantly are faced with a new, vibrant and life-giving place which you might have degraded before. You might have ignored it. You might have thought the story was going somewhere else. And suddenly the book reminds you the story is underneath your shoe. The story is in this, dirty window across the road. The story is right near you in a way that I think Josh discovered by sticking with it. So I want to introduce the book by saying the Bo Houston Prize was the origin of Josh and I working together. And it simply supplied water to a seed that was already, growing and there. And I'm very happy to be with everyone tonight to see what comes from efforts like Dan Carmel's to say, let's give support where we see writing flourishing outside of markets.
Yeah, and it was really kind of remarkable for me to kind of now be in conversation with Bo and through Dan, his life partner, and to be like entrusted, with some money and so much encouragement of like, hey, you should get this book down. We want to see a book that Bo would have loved. And that just really moved me. So Dan was kind enough to send some of Bo's work, which, is not easily circulated in the literary world. So I just wanted to read some of it that stood out to me and kind of helped open up myself to this to writing again. So Bo writes and hit this really cool pamphlet. Um, I came out in the mid 1970s. Where I lived, there was a strong lesbian and gay community, and I was delighted with what I saw and have been ever since. The lesbian and gay community is the only one I have ever willingly walked into. My needs have been met with this particular group of people time and time again. Having said that, though, it is also true that I'm not really the community type. Fellowship is a struggle for me. My emotional foundation has me As an outsider, different, solitary, and as a writer, this isolation is even more profound. And I just wanted to share some pictures of Bo while we're here. And then he writes later, but again, it comes down to defining my job. I'm a fiction writer. My job is not to tell people how to have sex. My job is not to provide role models. My job is not to reinforce the standards of my community or even challenge them necessarily. I can choose any of these explorations, but I am not obligated to. The job of fiction writers is very specific, yet its forms are multitudinous. My job is by nature deeply personal. It is to articulate my understanding of life, this moment, a memory, a fear, or hope for the future, death, pain, exhilaration, intoxication, anger, joy. I am supposed to organize and create something wonderful or terrible or astonishing from the material I have, my experience, observations, awareness. And then one last little bit. And this bit I share with my students. Let's see. We'll do it this way. My job as a writer is fused with my other job as a reader. I do not need Gay or any other writers to tell me what to do, what to think, what is or is not acceptable or popular. I do not ask a short story or novel to tell me how to live or what life is really like. Literature for me is not such a concrete thing, and when it seems concrete, when characters are believable, situations are identifiable, that is simply well-crafted illusion. Literature is an experience of imagination, made of dark or light shades. It is intuition and insight. It is taste. Reading and writing are great leaps of faith. They offer a vision, a version of life. So that's a little bit from Bo, really amazing writer. And again, his book, The Dream Life, is available through the Fellow Traveler series, in which my book is also part of. And we all share kind of the same cover. Um, so thank you, Matthew, for speaking a little bit about that. And I would like to pass the mic to Patrick, who could talk about the printing of the book and all the exciting work that he does.
Yeah, hey. Hi everyone. Thanks, Josh. I'm in the dark of mid Michigan here in a dark room. The warehouse is brighter than my actual surroundings. But yeah, this is amazing. Thank you for organizing all this and giving us a chance to hear from a multitude of voices tonight. I'm super excited. And yeah, so Publication Studio is, or let's just say Publication Studio Hudson is my studio, and it's in Troy, New York, upstate. Um, and I've been doing this for just about 10 years, actually. And I have a space in downtown Troy where I print and bind books in a few different ways. I actually have some just a little Instagram um medley of things I can show here. Um, but actually first maybe I should say since Josh you commented somehow in the beginning about like the the difference between self-publishing and non-self-publishing. And that's something that I think about or have thought about at different times and because the lines have been blurred with the advent of the kinds of technologies that we take advantage of to make our books because you don't need, presses either that take years to learn how to run or that fill, a garage to make books anymore. But I guess I would say just not that anyone asked, but maybe the main difference in between, as I see it, between a self-published book and a whatever you want to call it, a published book, is that in our case, we're sort of forming a partnership of a type. And I think that when I think of a book that's self-published, the book, in fact, might be made using methods and machines that are fairly similar to some of the ones that I use, but there is, I think, lacking a partnership. And with Publication Studio, part of what we're doing is we're saying, well, we want to take part in the marketing of the book and in the journey that the book takes in getting to readers and in that conversation. Um, and there's, I guess, different agreements that publishers come to that can take many forms. And with Publication Studio, that means that we print the book uh in most cases on demand. So we get an order for the book and then we print it and ship it out. And the profit from that one copy that we made, we split it 50-50, and we give 50% to the author and keep 50% for the studio. Um, so that's kind of like the core of it, I think, is this economic agreement and a spirit of partnership around enacting that um, I'm glad to have the chance to articulate a little bit just as I think about it. But yeah, I'll just show you quickly some let's see. Can I share my screen? I think I can. I'm gonna try. Um, oh, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's like
Oh wait, I think I can do it. Hold on.
okay, yeah, cool.
I think it's this one. Can you see anything?
Mm-mm.
Oh no.
Let's see.
How do I do this?
For mine,
So
there's a
many.
green button at the bottom that says share.
Oh, I see. Maybe I have to do this. Open. I'm sorry for the interruption. I think it'll be worth it if I can just figure this out for a
No,
moment.
yeah, it was confusing for me too because I just got a license and like the settings are a little different, so no worries. I dropped the link to the publication studio in the chat.
Later.
Let's see. So it has the option to make you the host, so I'm going to do that, and hopefully, like
Okay.
the whole Zoom thing, you could change it back.
Sure. Wait, actually, maybe I did this. Just here. Let's see.
Oh, there you go. It says you started sharing your screen. Double click to enter full screen mode. There you go.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So these are just I like went through my Instagram feed that just to show, okay, so here's a video where, we took a digitally printed book and we here I am binding it. You see the cover getting like squeezed. That's a book
Is
about
that
donuts.
glue? Is glue going on it?
That's glue. That's hot glue. And then usually we stamp our books on the spine with the date, and it's always exciting when the year changes. That was 7 years ago. We went to a new year, and I still have that same stamp. There's just a sort of that's actually not the space I'm in anymore, but that's 2016 in the winter, I guess. And you can see there's the digital printer in the background, which is just like kind of a beefed up copier, and other machines of yore, like this folder that is no longer, and things like that. But this is the kind of space I work in. Um, Here's just a close up of some pages being printed digitally. You can see that they're like they're ganged up four to a large sheet. So we do that a lot. So the idea is really just um Designing books. Oh, that's a risograph machine. Okay, think I'll stop sharing. Okay, cool. So that's like, with with a few tools, you can end up doing like lots of different types of work. But the main idea is we design the book, often working with the author and as Josh is showing there, the Fellow Traveler series has this like iconic um modern design it's a homage to the Traveler's Companion series from Olympia Press that you can Google and you'll see like that. They're green, but our books are red. And there's a whole kind of uh fellowship between those series. But yeah, we design it, we print it, we cut it, we put hot glue on it, put it in a cover, and put the date on it and send it out. That's like the publication studio like um iconic book make. And I work alongside um at the moment six other studios that are active in our network of publication studios. Those are in Sao Paulo, Montevideo, um, Vancouver, uh, Guelph, Ontario, and Paris. And uh, the the model provides that if a person orders the book, for instance, orders Josh's book or any of the other books that we print on demand, then if they order that in Brazil, then the studio in Sao Paulo can make that book and send it out, and then they pay Josh his fee. So that's kind of the messy 8 minutes or whatever. But yeah, I'm so excited to hear from the different readers tonight, and I just want to say thanks so much, Josh and Matthew for getting everyone to this moment.
Well, thanks, Patrick. Appreciate you. And just, I think it's really cool because there's a whole art and practice and economy of making the books. And Patrick is the sole logistics manager. So we appreciate you for getting the book to all sorts of homes across the country and actualizing it. So it's a beautiful, palpable thing. Um, just a one Zoom thing. Could you make me the host again? I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah, how do I do that?
If you go up to my panel, and you right click the three buttons, it will have a
Oh
little
yeah,
drop-down menu to make me the host.
there you go. I give you the conch.
Thank you, friend. All right, so we'll go ahead and one thing before we get started, I wanted to give a little um, token of my appreciation to you all. So I did create a Google form. I just dropped it in the chat. So you can fill out your address on the form, and I'll send you one of the stickers or some of the stickers that I made in celebration of the book. One of them I'm actually wearing right now. So that will be really cool. I would love to send you some stickers. But yeah, thank you, Patrick, and thanks everyone again for being here. All right, so first off tonight we have Julio Acevedo, Lady J, who performs as Lady J Monroe as a drag performer who's based in DC and is from Guanajuato, Mexico. And I met over the summer and we've collaborated since. And someone who really helped me walk a new life as a gay person. So Julio, I'm so glad that you're here. Are you ready, sis?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm looking for you on the little in the Brady Bunch menu. All right, let me say this. Let's see. Is your camera? Oh, there you are. Woo. All right, thanks, Julio. So Julio's going to open up for us tonight.
Chapter 1, Bloodsport. As the pandemic began, I switched to being a travel nurse. Like all healthcare workers, I received the vaccine early, but only after a whole trip to LA. It was almost unbearable without it. Honestly, when they first had us working on the sick and unvaccinated, rigged up a shitty ventilators rigged up on shitty ventilators from the 80s, I was like, no way. I barely had it in me to argue with the families of patients about why the vaccine will not help after they got COVID. I wasn't built for any line of work. It was a good time to leave upstate New York. My job came with the mass of corporate pressures and the union corralling everyone, for better or worse, to get behind real estate negotiations. I started applying to places in San Francisco, San Diego, and Los Angeles. The day after I put my application online, I heard back from a clinic in the city called San Bernardino, 2 hours east of LA. I didn't know anyone there, only a friend of a friend who I met outside of a party called Chacal Cumbia at a rundown disco in Silver Lake. He ended up being the only person I lost during the pandemic. He was not killed by the virus, but by his younger brother, probably, or some of his brother's friends. Ray, he was the definition of a loser. I glorify him as many of us did. He even earned the name Shit King because he looked not like Jesus, but the party cousin of the Virgin of Guadalupe. When I drive home, I go by the aqueduct of the 10 near to the 215 junction in Colton. There has to be a few people that live down there. I see some of them or their belongings every day. In the distance, you recognize them among the vegetation and debris of color of their skin and hair above their shirts. Or it might just be clothes cut in broken chair. I like to imagine Ray living down there, his ever slim body even more lank, hair mottled at the ends with burrs. His fate in the industrialized suburbs of Southern California suits him, dead or vanished, most likely forever gone. Maybe he got lucky. The rest of us go on with our overrated jobs and souped up virtual existence. Ray would have wanted to die without fanfare in a country field. He would be happy with maybe a shout out at a circuit party when everyone was on a coke or molly and rowdy in the dark room. This work a day life is an evil we will never overcome. A community college student ended up in the ICU with monkeypox, COVID, chlamydia, and an infected nose piercing. It is for queers like them that I write all this. Weeks after Ray disappeared, a family member of an ICU patient brought him up. The family member had recognized me from one of Subcomandante Ray's parties. He told me to check on Ray, who had seemed unhinged and then went quiet. On social media, everyone was encouraging everyone to kill their local promoter. Teenagers don oversized shirts of Shay, who needs to be canceled. Beyonce's song Thick has a riff sample from a house or disco song that Ray will have been able to place. People who happened to get Elena's number would ask about the next party. It was nice talking to her when I got off of work. My colleagues lived in garages or hotel rooms. Every day they woke up, worked, and then rested. Around my people, it almost feels like I could scrap this whole nursing thing and join the come up gang. It takes no effort to sort through work failures and regrets, the rage of patients, the lack of staff, the pride of administration whose emails I fixate on like a rat drug cheese. I relive I relive the night at Phil in when Ray helped me as he walked two hot bears down in chili dogs, and I nearly passed out on the microdose of GHB. Ray dwells in the haze of pleasure. Most of us will remember him as a Latino daddy with an OnlyFans and red pinup girl hat. Ragers are what I live for. In a world of a million pleasures, they're the only thing that always makes me happy. Whenever I come across a wrecked twunk or femme Latino seeking treatment, I feel an extraordinary sense of purpose. It is erotic. It is paternal. It is bizarre. Like others might ask, where did you get so messed up at Target, at the Ontario Mills, in the parking lot of mega church? They cannot imagine what happens at a gay rager. When they end up at my work, I'm happy to know that they found theirs in the shopping centers, the gang hype, the warehouses, celebrity culture. Family life is only a backdrop, something foreign to the dreams of guys I've known and loved. They hold their kids close as an anchor against real urges and feelings, passing a bachelor, even leather up whore like myself, makes him sad. My coworkers asked me for my perspective when a local teacher got fired for their OnlyFans. I said something professional. I trust no one at work except Pallavi. The dude actually earned a living at the real scandal in the school loses a willing. Had teacher who got more ass than the hags who ratted on him, as well as the lawyers in the annihilated and annihilate him. That is unless one of those lawyers is an alpha fag about it. Corporate homos do not live in the inland empire. Every trespass against hot men is noted in the hearts of all men. Society can retaliate against this or that debt written full. But it will never go after toxic hotness because hotness is the bedrock of modern straight life. Everyone, even genderqueer, reckons with this sooner or later. Even if they don't go for hot guys, any guy with enough muscle can attract the following. They can abuse in one town and find community in another. Yearning and yearning and horniness grows in my workplace, in any workplace, are filtered through cyber geography of gaydom, a steam of semi-naked and naked men, not crushes, not friends, but followers and fans. Hovering over these thirst traps allows a gay to expand, to evolve like everything else in this cold, expensive universe. There is nothing like a crowd of guys waiting to climb each other on a rooftop on the overgrown trails of the bluffs near where I used to live. Guys standing there, kind of dancing as what is about to happen starts to gel. Then it is like watching one of those neon signs on a timer, the different parts illuminating before and after until everyone scatters into apartments, suburbs, families, bathhouses, cages, and hills.
Thank you, Lady J. I miss you. I appreciate you, and thank you for zooming in from the DMV.
Of course, thank you for having me. Hope I didn't butcher it too much.
We love you, girl.
Love
You only add love to it.
it.
All right. Next we have Anna Moschovakis. I'm gonna find you in the Brady Punch. Oh, there you are. Waving. Hey Anna, how are you? Um, I'll read a little introduction. Anna Moschovakis works with poetry and prose as a writer, editor, translator, publisher, teacher, and designer. Her forthcoming novel, or it's already out, Earthquake is a shaking of the surface of the earth, and it's by Soft Skull Press. Her most recent book is Participation, a precarious novel about love and comradeship, the discomforts of desire, forms and functions of labor, and the embodied experience of reading and being read. Other books include the novel Eleanor or The Rejection of the Progress of Love, and poetry books They and We Will Get into Trouble for This, and You and Three Others Are Approaching a Lake, winner of the James Laughlin Award for the Academy of American Poets. Her most recent translation is David Diop's novel At Night All Blood is Black, for which she and Diop received the 2021 International Booker Prize. She has also translated Albert Cosseri's The Jokers, Annie Ernaux's The Possession, Brenson on Brenson, and with Christine Schwartz Harley, Marcel Savigno's commentary. She is a student of plants and herbalism, a member of the publishing collective Ugly Duckling Press, and a co-founder of the Bushel Collective, an experimental mixed-use deli, mixed-use storefront in Delhi, New York. She is currently at work on a novel, a book of essay poems, an experimental documentary, and a collaborative translation of Miret Kabade's evolutionary poems, forthcoming from Circumference Books. Thank you so much for joining us, Anna. And I always wonder which coast are you on? But I'm so happy you're here tonight.
First of all, I would have sent you a much shorter bio. I'm so sorry to
No,
read all that.
you're good.
I'm often in the Inland Empire, but I'm in upstate New York right now. And jet lagged. I'm so happy to be part of this. It's wonderful to see you all, and I'm just so excited. So I'm reading at Josh's instruction from page 114 to 119. So I'm going to assume that it's okay to just read it without preface, correct?
Oh, well, so I
Do you
guess
want to say anything?
I'll say that so the Julio read from the narrator's perspective, and the narrator meets Elena and Ray, and who the book is about. Elena is a goth chola who dropped out of art school. The book takes place a couple years after. She's in her mid-20s. She just moved back to the Inland Empire from Los Angeles after losing her apartment, and she becomes besties with Ray, and they try to start an OnlyFans together. They not her participating, but her kind of filming and producing content. But they only make like a total of $60 at this point in the book. But they find that their efforts are not without fortune, and they start throwing parties in the Inland Empire, and this is one of the parties that they throw.
There were so many people in the living room, there was no way to go around. As one car pulled out to let another one in, the headlights swept the kitchen as if it was about to plow through it. Here, Ray said. His bedroom lit up some of the hallway. There were photos of his family from what looked like 20 years ago when Ray had no white hair. As Elena flashed by them, she saw that most were taken on the beach, but not all on one beach. The dents in the door frame glistened. On the wall, Elena saw rosebuds floating on green wallpaper. Inside, Ray sat at his vanity, a big round mirror with a single sticker on the edge showing the holographic head of an alien. I should probably shave, huh? He asked. You're going to need both red and black, she said. Sexy grieving should be the vibe. Some of my black stuff is on the bed, he said. He took off his clothes and turned the shower on. This is all leather, Elena said. Ray covered himself with the shower curtain before getting in. I have more shit in the closet. Try the left side. Everything in the closet was crammed together, reducing each piece to a sliver of material, a color. Some garments were on the floor. One rack had women's clothes only. Ray had mentioned that his ex, Sonia, had died, or had he texted about it? Elena imagined him going to the liquor store every day as a way to visit her grave, something he talked himself out of. Based on what I'd heard from Elena, I could imagine that Ray was eager to tell the late Sonia all about his life now, his OnlyFans, Elena, every step the two of them took, and every setback. He kept a list of exciting things to tell Sonia. She'd loved Ray as a hustler, as a porn star, as a husband, as a father. She continued to love him even as a super faggot. Sonia would have loved Elena, I believe. Avoiding the cemetery, Ray pursued his dreams, as Sonia always wanted him to. Money, work, love, these things dulled suffering to the degree that one could prove they were not losses. If Elena had a say, she would meet up with her friends at a Salvation Army or Buffalo Exchange. She sought out thrifts when she was a production assistant in New Orleans and Albuquerque. She felt a similar vibe looking at Ray's bins of scuffed sneakers, patchy jackets, lank jock straps, and racks of almost identical tank tops. He kept a plastic vitamin jar filled with cock rings. You'd have to have 5 cocks to enjoy them all. Her shoulder rubbed up against chain necklaces as she searched for the second light switch. She heard Ray step into the shower. On the bottom right rack were two bodysuits that felt a little spongy, a coat made of yellow and purple feathers, several biker jackets, and an oversized surfer tee that was falling off the hanger. She grabbed a red silk scarf for herself. In the middle of the closet, at eye level, was a stack of gray sweatpants and a tin tray of real and fake jewelry, a black and blue Garrison hat, as well as a red vinyl cap. Nearby, Ray showered, a warm brown plinth with dark pubes behind fogged glass. She could hear him brushing his teeth, as well as the DJ's bass. She grabbed a dark flannel kilt and combat boots with leather laces. For the top, she grabbed a slim-fit button-up, the only part of the outfit that could be called proper. The voices in her head were louder than the music. Her haters had front-row seats for life. Whites disregarded her entire race. Latinos liked picking her apart. She imagined her batshit Tia's voice. Why are you touching some other guy's sex things? This whole gig with Ray was kinky, vicious, defiant. Was it a loophole, though? Should Elena be in front of the camera? She hadn't made a dime and was already wasting money. Her older cousin in Rancho Cucamonga might understand her, the one who always wanted to rumble and was with a different guy every time she saw him. In his dresser, Ray kept shirts that were more his type, cowboyish shirts he might wear to Christmas mass, to get his car fixed, or to the liquor store. There were also some rainbow suspenders and 3 different pairs of overalls. She could hear the electric razor mauling his beard and the water running and, stronger now, the DJ's bass. I could never be a journalist. I was never interested in understanding my own life. Other lives, though, fascinated me. Elena and I watched bad movies all the way through the credits. Elena wandered over to the bed where she laid out the outfit of her hot and grieving bridegroom. She could hear the warble of everyone talking, shouting against the music, and the music prevailing. The emo was awkward to dance to, but ideal for everyone needing to dissociate. The tall redhead came in to drop off the veil, asking how Ray was doing in a low, honeyed tone. She's taking her time, Elena said. Oh my God, is she showering? The redhead asked, impressed. Elena nodded. She's so extra, said the redhead, who, as you will find out in the next chapter, everyone called Pelirrojo. The water turned off. Pelirrojo giggled to himself and then left. Ray pulled the towel around him to dry off and wrapped himself in it, and then came out. Elena had grown up with a lot of brothers who went around the house towel wrapped like some wounded samurai. Some guys were meant to have facial hair, while other guys were Ray with frog eyes and baby cheeks. What? He asked angrily. Nothing, she said. Ray looked. Si que estás mintiendo. He marched by and then shrieked upon seeing the bed. Oh my God, yes. Really dry yourself, otherwise it's going to be impossible to put this shit on, Elena said. Ray did so, freeing his towel. Elena's face burned. She thought of all those young, hot photographers who were able to land nude, full bleed spreads in high-end art house magazines. They had her respect. Maybe this feeling was her own veil of shame, meeting the flamethrower of tolerance. He slipped on the kilt and then put on the shirt. Ray's face looked so small, Elena thought. It could fit in one hand. He plopped down before the mirror in order to match up his buttons. Elena noticed how he was getting dressed by almost staring into his own eyes. He tucked in his shirt. Afterwards, he sighed deeply and then went to put on cologne from an unlabeled orange bottle. Elena, could you help? Ray asked. She was spacing out. The veil, he groaned. As much of a bitch as Ray was, Elena could tell that he was holding back. This was difficult. Ray knew better than to take anything out on his new friend. Plus, while anger is outright scary in men sometime in their mid to late 20s, at Ray's age, expressing anger for more than a second or two was pathetic. The only exception was traffic. He grumbled as the kilt slipped off. Sit first, beautiful, Elena said. You're so tall. Ray sat at his vanity, poised, nervous. Elena never liked seeing anyone nervous. Truly annoying people were brazen and never nervous. Give me 5 first, she said. No, Ray said. Elena held her hand up. She looked at him again and then thought, now he doesn't look like a baby frog. Without making eye contact, Ray high-fived her. Up high, she said. He high-fived again. In the sky, she said. He high-fived her again. In space, she said. He high-fived again. In your face, she said, and then she wiped her hand down his mouth.
Thank you so much, Anna. My roommate is here. He's also dying off camera because he does that high five thing to me. Um, so we have actually a back-to-back. So Anna, where Anna left off, our next reader, Monique, is going to pick up. So our next reader is Monique Quintana. She is the author of Cenote City from Clash Books and My Favorite Sancho and Other Fairy Tales from Sword and Kettle Press. Her work has been supported by Yaddo, the Community of Writers, Sundress Academy for the Arts, and Kimmel Harding Nelson Center. She lives in Fresno's Tower District. So, Monique, thank you for so much for being able to make it tonight.
Hi, big congrats to Josh, and also happy almost New Year to everyone. I'll be reading from page 119 in the novel. Back outside, the wind, occasionally warm, occasionally rough, was warm. The teenage DJ was officially taking a break, covering his mouth to light up a blunt. The crowd, now hungry, huddled around the redhead and Hector, imbibing their food and drink. A few glanced at Ray as he stepped out. People will stop at nothing for attention. Elena disappeared beside him. Are you going to dance with me? Ray asked. Por supuesto que no, mi amor, Elena said. He tugged in front of his suspenders. Sonia and I never got hitched officially, he said. Why? Elena asked. Muchachas, caballeros, may I have your attention? The DJ announced. He coughed away from the mic. Marriage destroys relationships, Ray said. As Ray talked about sacrifices and commitment, Elena spaced out a bit. She remembered she was put off by a certain producer who mentioned sacrifice at a meeting before shutdown. Then she imagined the torsos and plumes of Aztec dancers who flexed their power through lost streets. She thought about a lake and a decorative Victorian painting she saw in D.C. It surfaced yellow and black. Now she noticed for the first time that the whole party took up only a slice of Ray's yard. Everyone crowded together, bordering on emptiness. Ray finished by saying, Insurance led us to getting a civil union. If you talk to any middle-aged dude long enough, he will bring up insurance. You wanted me, Peter said. He finished chewing a hot dog before crumbling the accordion paper tray it came on, and then tossing it aside. You have ketchup on your face, Ray told Peter before wiping it off with his thumb. Peter flinched at first. Elena handed Ray a used paper towel she had found somewhere. She turned toward Peter. Would you dance with the missus? Only if she'll have me, Peter said. Useless hoes, pinche peras, the DJ began. Please turn this way. 2 people you could care less about are about to dance. Ray asked, what do you want to dance to? Flamenco, porfy, Peter said. Elena knew Peter had never danced a flamenco in his life. She turned toward the DJ. Our Lady wants flamenco. Could you? The DJ nodded yes. I don't know why I'm doing this, Ray said. True love, Elena replied. Basile, the DJ called. Cumbia started playing. The DJ repeated himself as he focused on changing the song. There are 3 rules, Zoras. The first one is we would like everyone to please shut up. Just like that. Exactly. Second, don't be talking shit afterwards unless it's actually funny. Now I give you Blondie and Lady Rey de la Noche. It was quiet, and then the guitar string snapped. Strumming blurred quick chords together, so that the hand itself emerged as an instrument. The dancers on the soundtrack stomped in sync until the silence was also the music. As the melody came together, a young girl declared herself as Rosa. She sang about hiding from the sun. Peter danced like he was being hit by paintballs. Ray knew better. Peter was a doll, and Ray guided him up. He said softly enough not to disturb his veil. Up, almost, almost, spin, spin. Beautiful, beautiful. Now just sway in place. In reality, though, Ray might as well be saying bibbity bobbity boo. Midway through the song, they grinded on each other with Peter riding Ray's leg. Ray wrapped an arm around Peter, and Peter wrapped an arm around Ray. They were close enough to kiss when Peter blew into Ray's veil. Ray chuckled. He was angry, but he felt pleasure. The rhythm was pure humping when the guitar cut out. By herself, the girl sang about finding a stream that no longer wanted rain. Other children joined singing in the chorus. Ray lifted his hand and curled his fingers. He danced around Peter. As the song ended, Peter twerked. The crowd jeered. Another. Ay, 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 ay. Gay, fucking gay. Ass, slap his ass. Ray lifted his kilt. Afterwards, Peter disappeared with his friends, who were smacking him and laughing. They went to a shed in the back, past the goats posed over the hay like supermodels. It was time to cut the coke. Well, while some people spend eons figuring out how to get a refund, while some people spend eons figuring out how to get a refund for this life, Peter was happy being less than nothing. This was good enough for him to be around. This was good energy for him to be around after attending so much afflicted and actual pain. As the crowd dispersed, there was a loud crash. Everyone turned to the tree in the corner of the patio. Sam had fallen out of it. She and Chris were laughing their asses off. Her hand was also bleeding a bit. I stitched it up with a little hot glue and told her to go to the hospital first thing in the morning. She never did go, out of fear of COVID, and the tree henceforth became known as the Tree of Death.
Thank you so much for reading that, Monique, and Anna bringing those scenes of him in them getting ready and then going out and dancing in the moonlight. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So next we have Brittany Menjivar, who's actually on a plane and she's zooming in, but she sent a recording of her reading, which I'll play. And let me know if the audio is working.
Peter wanted to borrow speakers from his ex, Charisse. Charisse belonged to his distant past when he worked concessions at an indie movie house in Claremont. He wore torn polo shirts and got hammered at the batting cages with neighborhood bros. Around that time, Peter wore a name tag for a woman named Betty from Mervin's. He would have picked up the speakers sooner, but he'd started drinking by the time she responded to his text on Wednesday. And then they both got caught up with work. Then Peter wondered if she was mad at him because she didn't respond for a couple of days. Cherie still lived at the Red Falcon Mobile Home Park off town in Pomona. On Friday morning, Elena parked Peter's beat-up Scion under an alder that uprooted the sidewalk, the one parking space on a block littered with smashed extra-large cups, flattened beer boxes, leaves, and a garment that would never again see the light of day. In 99-cent flip-flops, Elena felt everything under her feet. Peter was carrying iced Café de Ollas from the spot across the theater where he and Charisse used to meet. He set them on the car hood and put on black shades that pretty much blinded him. As Elena edged her way to the curb, Peter was on his phone. Va casita, he said. Elena and Peter were the same jaded demon punks they had been since high school, but they were no longer bone-thin nor wildly reckless. Now they had workout routines and bedtimes. Elena felt this difference strolling along a chain-link fence as the morning clouds were burning off. She wore an oversized shirt from high school gym class with a grizzled coyote hunched over the space where students could write their names in permanent marker. On it, Peter had drawn stick figures with grenades and bazookas. Like Elena, Peter wore a pair of yoga pants. He also wore an old white shirt with stretch marks from where he hung his shades and from his sausage nipples. Elena had never been to a trailer park before. Its chicness surprised her. Each unit was hooked up to utilities. A few had fake lawns and their awnings out. Others had bike sheds bound by chains, striped beach chairs, and grill pits bolted to the ground. The one they arrived at had a wind chime of concentric circles that rotated at different speeds. Each of their lives was a different radio station. Peter did not want Charisse to feel used. He had gone out of his way to include her in his band night. There was a time when Charisse could summon the flower children from the nearby liberal arts colleges to her gallery, Spitfire, which was now shuttered. She could summon the gayest Mexicans, plaid vaqueros, or circuit fairies with her music and drag. Peter sipped his café. Her gallery closed after she hosted a fistfight between a Karen and a Senora. It was a ticketed event. The police charged them all with crimes. Peter was not sure if Charisse would respond. He had texted her saying that he wanted to come by Friday morning. Charisse responded several days later with a thumbs up emoji. This is the one, Peter grumbled, a little hungover. He walked up to her mare yellow mobile home and then knocked. The door was a cutout rectangle fitted with a flimsy rubber gasket and a small screen window that, judging by the dust, looked like it was always left open. After a pause, he opened the door slowly and saw Charisse inside, lying on the sofa in boxers, a tank top, and an N95 mask. The couch was the only thing that actually fit in the room, which now doubled as storage for her gallery. There were 2 giant paintings draped with tarps, car parts on strings like marionettes, a polished bicycle with a screen built into its frame, a stained glass portrait of a slutty princess, and boxes that took over the kitchen. I would hug you, she groaned, but I have to ask you to get out. It's cool, Peter said. I'm sure I have COVID, she said. She lifted her chin. She let out a small cry. Poor yous, Elena said. Let's wait outside, Peter said. Do it. I moved everything out there, Cherie said. After getting situated on the lawn chair, Elena watched the flying bugs and grasshoppers in the small field behind the mobile home. The whir of insects reminded her of East Texas, where she'd briefly been a studio assistant for a kids' travel TV show after she had dropped out of art school. She could hear a garbage truck in the distance flipping dumpsters as Peter and Charisse talked. Even if I hadn't thrown a bottle at that bitch, Spitfire wouldn't have survived lockdown, Charisse said. The examiner said nothing hit her, Peter said. But it blew up right next to her face, Charisse said. Now I'm stuck storing all these works by artists who forget my name as I expensively hide from my problems. Peter wanted to say something about what she could and could not control, but Charisse continued. Elena took it all in. She adored organized Scots, even from afar. So is Oasis having another parking lot party? Charisse asked. No, girlie. I'm organizing a band night, Peter said. That's right, Charisse said. You booked Vampira and Jaguar on the same night. Why? Why not? Peter asked. The Vampira bassist totally hates the singer from Jaguar, Charisse said. He screwed her on rent, crashed her car, or something. Also, Paulo should go last, but tell them they're going second since they usually show up 2 hours late. Charisse wanted to bring up Peter's band. Why wasn't he performing, even solo? She also wanted to be there so she could also see her nephew in Victorville, which was kind of on the way, but she was still feeling sick and she left it alone. Thanks, Peter said. It was awkward for Elena to hear him so formal. De nada, Betty, Charisse said. As they carried the beehive of speakers to the car, Elena said, I thought you guys were going to make out. You didn't cockblock nobody, Chica, Peter said. She seems like sick, sad girl right now, but she has this super ripped biker boyfriend who is totally off the grid. They walked back to the car in the familiar heat, the sunshine that torched the tops of their shirts. Low-key, I want to blaze, Elena said. Bitch, not now. We got a shit ton of errands, Peter said. Elena glared at him. They loaded the speakers in the trunk, which only closed on a good day, and had to be secured with bungee cords. Nestled again in the passenger seat, Elena said, Fag, you're buying lunch. I don't know about you, but I'm taking Adderall, Peter said. Fag, you're giving me Adderall, Elena said.
Well, thank you, Brittany, so much for being here and reading for that. So, Brittany was born and raised in the DMV. She now works and plays in the City of Angels. She is the author of the poetry and prose collection Parasocialite and the co-founder of the literary reading series Car Crash Collective. The Car Crash Collective anthology is available now through Metal Label. So next we have me. Nate couldn't be here tonight. He's pretty sick, but we miss him and we'll see him soon. All right. The last section was from Peter, who's Elena's best friend from high school, who's never left the Inland Empire. They go out to start getting speakers and more things for the party. Um, and then this next chapter was actually the last chapter that I wrote for the book. It's actually the third chapter. So it's kind of weird how it happened because I had the whole narrative arc and then something happened. I went to Mexico City and it just, just opened my mind to all sorts of possibilities and just changed my whole perception of life itself. So this chapter was very much inspired by Mexico City. Um, and so in this chapter, they start throwing kind of parties every couple weeks. And in one of them, a gang of college students from Berkeley are going to show up, some grad students, most of them international. And they're just going to crash because they know some band or someone that's playing. Um, it's kind of things that happened during COVID or happened in other times that made sense to, but maybe during COVID. Uh, so the bus is coming of these college students. There she blows, I said. I then went shirtless to the gate that opened directly to the parking area. He unlocked it and wheeled it to the side, like Superman hauling an airplane. It came a In came a caramel and beige-colored Mercedes microbus, the kind kicking around college towns like Coyoacan, blasting what sounded like Bob Marley or Sublime. It was driven by a handsome, mild-mannered geochemistry PhD student from Tehran who had rebuilt it with his lesbian poet theorist housemate after some undesirables abandoned it set up on blocks in a city park. Fixing it inspired a road trip of all places to Mexico City, a destination that scared off most of the in-state kids, leaving a mongrel transnational colectiva, which is what they called themselves, each with their own seat. Each seat was gently requilted by the house seamstress, who decided to come too at the last minute, even if it would mean retaking organic chemistry. The micro could only go 60 miles per hour. After that, things got shaky, but it had a rice cooker and Garfield stickers above some of the windows, the kind that cost 4 quarters at pizza joints. Someone superglued action figures to the hood, two of which did not make it to Fresno. Others in the Colectiva wrote the lyrics to MGMT, Molly Mills, and Fleetwood Mac on the white of the wheel rims. The windows had water stains and were not guaranteed to totally close if you opened them. Tibetan prayer flags zigzagged across the ceiling. Inside, it smelt faintly of hot rubber and salt, a box of which had spilled half an hour into the trip. Who rode in the Colectiva's micro? The co-op's ex-president, who brought cocaine and Red Bull and was the best cook, not that it mattered, gave the best braids, and could parse out the different varieties of gossip, revenge, jealous, elitist, petty, sabotage, denial, selfish, etc. She failed all of her electives in the humanities, which bothered her home school, the School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, not one bit. Also riding the micro was a sociology major from Lund, Sweden, who would eventually gain small fame in Los Angeles, at least among entertainment adjacent folks in Silver Lake and Atwater, for her libertine politics that bode well in the age of lens and exploitation. Her tweet to an out-of-touch executive saying, "I will stab you," went viral even though it overstated who she was. For years, she was obsessed with construction sites. Riding the micro was Gabriella and her second boyfriend this year. A first generation college student, Gabriella was noted for being one of the nice people in the cooperative, which meant was both a positive and negative thing. It implied she never got laid. Nevertheless, she enjoyed being around her excessive and reckless housemates who failed to improve her off the rack style, no matter how many times they took her thrifting. She was also the only one who spoke actual Spanish, the colectiva's implied mother tongue. There was also an indigenous peoples lawyer married to a radio producer from Alaska who were so in love, i.e., emotionally stable, that they became everyone's slightly twisted parents. The others on board were Los Darks, as they would be called in La Ciudad de Mexico. They wore dark colors, though they were not all necessarily all black. They had homemade tattoos of knives, minor architectural details, Byzantine equations, and anatomical line illustrations by monks, punks, and medieval scribes. The members of Collectiva were future artists, assistants, conductors, engineers, who could sleep through any promotion and microdust drugs they found on the floor. One had a red shirt one had a shirt that read, "I'm here, but like over there." When the micro crapped out in La Paz, they boarded a plane and spent the rest of the year in the Fresa neighborhoods of Mexico City. Elena texted Ariane about the micro parking next to the patio. Then she corrected herself, seeing that they were already there. Ariane said, "No me importa." By the time she got back, the micro's riders were acquainted with everyone, including 5 of Hector's nieces and nephews, the not-so-shy ones. The Colectiva made it clear that they were their own COVID pod, stretching a rectangle of string around the micro and the plastic stanchions surrounding a number of the fold-out chairs that they took from the side of the house. They wore N95s. They stayed outside. They wore N95s whenever they strayed outside their string boundary for a drink or to use the bathroom. By the end of the party, however, the co-op's president was making out with the drummer from Palo Lalo and 2 of Peter's friends. Elena had gotten the social of Los Darks, who even gave her some patches. The micro driver and Ray talked for hours about monetizing OnlyFans, which the driver, who is also a semi-professional kickboxer, still aspired to do. His eyes lit up when Ray told him how much a straight guy could make just by wagging his dick. Ray even taught him a couple moves. Sam said it looked like Ray and the driver totally wanted to blow each other, and that seemed kosher. A group of local college kids brought enough coke to blow a small army, and nearly wiped out Ray's supply of poppers. One even administered naproxen to one of the members of Vampira who was fading in the micro. Ray and Elena never found out. The Libertine also swiped a bottle of mezcal from the fridge and hyped up 4 of Hector's wallflower nephews, who she called fucking cool, out of nowhere. They compared dumbfuck UK guys to dumbass IE guys. They argued about harm reduction being a thing. Hector's nieces and nephews recommended post-punk bands and explained the many uses of verga. They laughed really hard after several shots and pretty much for the rest of the party when the Libertine came back with when the Libertine called herself a wee lass, which of course became her new nickname. The singer for Happy Hill tried to light a cigarette on the stove but burned her hair. Sam, who saw it happen, forced her to add the cig to the tree of death. She agreed to do so only after she smoked some, which she did poetically in the quiet of Ray's living room. Friends of Hector's cousins started a shirtless dance party, blasting cumbia from the living room TV and passing fat joints. Elena had never seen so many titties. Hector's nieces and nephews were the only ones who didn't talk during the sets the musicians played, except for the odd silence that Happy Hill, whose one solo went on for over 12 minutes. 2 nieces got the party going by dancing a chunti ranchero to Vampira's second song. From the start to the end of the night, Adrian and Nina necked like egrets who landed in a parking lot that must have been their spot. Musicians in the big bands joined solos on stage and knew their songs because everyone in these groups constantly dissolved and reformed with new names, new sounds, new influences. The Colectiva seamstress talked to one of the Mexican guys about how he couldn't go back to Puebla, even though his grandmother and brother were sick back home, because he only had a green card and there was no guarantee be let back in. The seamstress hadn't seen her family in Mumbai in a decade. With people who promised her they tested negative, she shared a tea made from shrooms. Palo Lalo's fourth song, which had an acoustic guitar as well as a call and response, drove the tripping seamstress into the crowd, dancing a mean-ass garba, breaking the last of the pod officially. She was so high gently swayed with her hand raised. The poet, theorist, lesbian mechanic joined her. When the lead singer for Vampira told the crowd to shut up for their opening number, I felt we earned their rage. We earned our rage. 2 of Hector's cousins wanted to punch him in the beard, which had been painted with red glitter. He told the drummer to pound out a 1-2-1-2 beat, and asked the violinist to play. After a moment, he joined in. It was like everyone had forgotten how much they loved music. Instantly, every gay in attendance wanted to ravish his trans hole. Peter looked across the field as he smoked a cig by himself. He stared at the decab trailers for Amazon, Yellow, Extra, Costco, JB Hunt, Triton, Macerus, Mediterranean Shipping Company. Money, Peter thought, and then ripped a weed from the ground. The party was pulling him back into a vortex of sound and sweat that made it worth organizing, a pressured chaos that reminded me strangely of the ER at Colton Hills Hospital. I think that's my part. Yeah, that's my part. So we have another back-to-back with Roberto Tejada picking up where I left off. Roberto Tejada is the author of the poetry collections Carbonate of Copper from Fornham and is coming out this next year in April. Why the Assembly Disbanded, 2002, Full Foreground, Exposition Park, and Mirrors for Gold, as well as several works of art and media history. And I always tell people that his book, Still Nowhere in Empty Vastness, is required reading, especially for those of us who grew up in the borderlands of Southern California. All right, Roberto?
Thank you, Joshua. I'm so excited to be reading from your amazing novel, which I love so much, and to be in this amazing company. Um, this section, as Joshua was saying, continues, but there's a pivot which I think is important. So I'll first be reading from Gabriel's point of view, the narrator who's at the working in the ER and ICU of Colton Hills Hospital, and then there's a pivot to one of the rave parties that Ray and Elena have been organizing. Our gay pod at Colton Hills began in Dr. Bear Daddy's backyard. Dr. Bear Daddy had been moved to ER as the crisis grew in scope, and he made it his new domain. He had a house in Claremont across the street from the Liberal Arts College with a terrace, herb garden, and a nook where he liked to sip some imported tea before his shift. Dr. Bear Daddy had invited various medical gays to mingle. Just a month into COVID, we were dying for his attention. Off to the side, he asked me if I would transfer to his yard. I said I'd consider it, knowing that my travel nurse agency would never sign off on it. I was being paid too much to switch to basic nursing. Still, as a courtesy, I offered to do a walkthrough. After flaking out once, I did the walkthrough on a day I knew Dr. Bear Daddy wouldn't be there, not wanting to have to say no directly. I headed to ER after a full shift at the ICU. It was easier to just not change out of my scrubs. Curiosity gave me a sweet burst of energy. The sunset conspired, ranging over Colton Hills like a wildfire. Cars, like tents gathered at Burning Man, crowded into lines before they could be directed to a designated parking area. Our future patients looked shadowy, like apparitions. Some cars had switched their headlights on, leaving everything else dark, like we were mere interruptions of outer space. At the side entrance, a woman argued with a triage nurse, insisting that we didn't care about her son. The upset woman's son looked to be around 5 years old. He held her hand lamely, like he was an animatronic stuffy. The carpenter's mask on the boy's face almost covered his head. A security guard tried to intervene, but the upset woman wouldn't make eye contact. Other future patients and their loved ones watched quietly. The ones closest to the dispute no longer lorded over their place in line like others in the back. The triage nurse waved me in. Everything they needed to say I could read from behind their goggles and masks. Inside, the ER lobby was busy with basic nurses carting supplies and sheet pan racks back and forth. It was kind of funny watching them. The basic nurses were out of shape and learning their new jobs on the fly. And most of our carts were so ghetto that they required 2 people to make a turn. At least someone had made different lanes by taping the floor. I knew I was right to say no. Dr. Bear Daddy was catfishing me on the job. It was not chill, not even organized like he claimed. ER had taken some over some big ER had taken over some big departments at the hospital, including pediatrics and internal medicine, the department that usually processed the most patients. The reception to internal medicine was completely empty and all the doors were propped open. Now every patient was an emergency. I continued past reception to the crowded hallway of ER, where all the room doors were open. The nurses working did not even look twice at me. In the first patient room, a woman in a bathrobe was hooked up to a respirator. Her skin was like tree bark, not one kind, but different varieties. A Gen Z nurse with neck tattoos and maroon scrubs brushed past me carrying trays of turkey and mashed potatoes. Gen Z is gayer than gay. In another room, abuzz with fluorescent light, a skinny woman looked terrified, as if a litter of kittens was eating her alive. She yelled that she wasn't afraid of COVID, but of calories. A gurney, two nurses pushed down the hallway, got caught on a cord to a broken ventilator. Old ventilators were everywhere, some working, most not, cased in metal used for filing cabinets, piled up in all the stations where we took vital signs. A team of mechanics, all Mexican, ate Chinese food in silence in the break room. They were here on a 24/7 emergency call to fix oxygen pipes that kept freezing up. We were nowhere near capacity, and it was a matter of time before every nurse would have 3 patients or more. I'd quit ICU if they ever assigned us 4. Being responsible for the life and death of 4 fucking people at the same time when they're incapacitated, it was unthinkable. Everyone who wasn't actually dying needed to stay the fuck home unless they came here to die. The crew of mechanics in the fluorescent orange uniform sat opposite 3 burly nurses whose sole job was to carry away the dead bodies. When I was 12, I swore to myself that I would not become another one of those fat-ass Latinos who work themselves to death. The patients in the next 3 rooms reminded me of that cruel tween promise. The first 2 looked doomed, and one seemed to regret her decision to come to the hospital, judging by the way she had her arms crossed and was continuously readjusting her seat. The third was unconscious. Laid out flat, he was hooked to a wall respirator. Mid-30s, he had a broom mustache, and his baseball cap sat on the computer keyboard beside him. The nurses had muted his monitors, which I don't think was protocol. The IV above him glimmered with final offerings as his life drifted away to the other side. His face was rosy, his hands pale and cold. Death spiraled around him. I could hear what sounded like a family in a room down the hall. They probably all had COVID. I heard a boy weeping. I heard a woman repeat the name Edgar over and over and over. Edgar, Edgar. And I left. This is all because of you, Ray told Elena through his spiked mask. It was pretty much the same thing that some dude on Twitter would say of Elena a few days after the party when he woke up with COVID. This sad boy had a small but formidable following. In any case, shortly after Ray said that, a glitter war broke out. It was just past 11. If Aiden did not have a reason to kill his brother before, he did now. Glitter drifted in waves over the patio as if the gayest piñata had exploded. There was glitter in both sinks in the house and in every available towel, as well as in the tub where a drunk fool washed his jeans. Glitter on chickens who were wandering around all night. Glitter on the goats Hector and Rey, milked in the morning, which gave many chorro. Glitter on the cement freeway divider and the barbells, glitter on the faces of the couple who married and ended up in Anchorage, glitter in the carpet that would only come out after the house was sold to a Tokyo-based conglomerate that once bought a mall in Daly City, thinking it would attract people from San Francisco to come shop. Glitter in the colectivas micro, glitter in the beer and in the bottom of the beer cups after we drank the beer, glitter in the condoms left in the backfield, glitter in the coaches that Hector's 36 nieces and nephews came in. Glitter on the husky shackled to the freeway barrier. glitter, and fingernails. A bottle of glitter was later found duct taped to the tree of death. Elena and Ray had sparked the war by sneak attacking Peter early on. They made hand signals from opposite side of the patio through the thick of the crowd, but could not take action until they met on the side to hatch a plan. They got Peter when he was smoking alone. They got him so good, all he could do was throw his hands in the air and close his eyes and cry. The lead for Jaguar did not react when person after person assailed them with glitter, just as New York traffic guards seem invincible to snow and rain. To be fair, they did egg on the mosh pit. The seamstress coughed from laughing so hard as she choked on glitter. Two coworkers noticed that I had glitter on me when I returned to work. I gave an excuse inspired by Elena. In school, whenever she was absent, she told her teachers that she had to take care of her baby girl and then showed them a studio portrait of her niece. I showed them a picture of my neighbor's nephew, compelling their sympathy with his unbelievable cuteness. Please send me to space if I ever become as nosy and institutionalized as my coworkers. The glitter war was anonymous and indiscriminate. The ones I took for sweet and kind glittered others with so much joy that we groaned and cackled in our agony. Glitter in the mouth, glitter in our eardrums. The fun wore off after the woman choking actually needed the Heimlich. At that point, a single gaze was enough to disarm anyone. A line formed in front of bare-chested Hector and Pelirrojo who were selling ecstasy. Lines also formed at the sinks. Peter, everyone admired each other's beaten and shimmering bodies. Lines also formed at the sinks. Peter dumped the last of the glitter over the tree of death. Peter took it upon himself to introduce the next band by reading one of Felix's poems, Dead and Taking Over That Damp Roof Over Your Winter Face. Happy Hill played a song about 2 p.m. being the perfect time to be unconscious, and it ended with Screamo and 7 other musicians jamming on stage. A woman with a look of amused anger pulled Peter by the shirt through the crowd. A bottle of precious mezcal found its way to the slothful hands of the drummer for Palo Lalo, who stripped down to her underwear and a hoodie. Groups left for the nasty taco stand that only closed on 6 separate days during the entire pandemic. Elena was well into her second hour of not talking to anyone when Ray signaled to her. He pointed at the ice chest that sat near the equipment. He made a shoe gesture, which Elena correctly interpreted as pick up all the empty and stray bottles. Elena dumped the box of bottles she'd collected from the side of the house. When she returned to the patio, someone had replenished the ice chest with fresh ice and beer, plus a little glitter. A while later, Ray gave Elena a dirty look and raised his hand over his head, a signal they normally use to point out a hot guy. Elena laughed and held her hand at eye level, signaling the same.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being.
Josh.
Again, it's so special to have everyone here tonight. I thank you everyone for staying. We just have a couple more people. It'll be recorded, so if you have to bounce, I totally understand. This is the holidays. But next we have James, and James specifically asked for a sexy section, so I gave him one of the sexy ones. James Nulick is the author of several highly acclaimed books, including Boy Crush, Lazy Eyes, The Moon Down to Earth, Haunted Girlfriend, and Valencia. His new novel, Plastic Soul, is out now, also from the Fellow Traveler series. So thank you so much, James, for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, Joshua. And I didn't realize just how sexy this section was going to be. So, so forgive me if I get a little out of control. But so this begins on page 182. I found Ray in the back. He and Aiden had built out a multi-room web of wood posts, PVC pipes, and tarps. From the outside, it looked like a giant trap. The first room opened onto the station wagon, the fridge, and a microwave. For a few years, one of Aiden's friends ran a small hydroponic farm. Ray said it massively upped the water bill. Combined with inflation, they soon stopped making money. Now some seedlings grew along 2 sides of this room. The tarps stretched away, extending into a sequence of chambers, absorbing the dank color and smell, along with dust. If you licked them, you might get high. A family of cats made a home among the tarps as well. They were not fazed by the music, meowing for food at the half-naked gays stumbling around. Lazy and spoiled, the cats moved only if someone nudged the makeshift door against them. The field past the yard, with its soft brown dirt, belongs somewhere in techno heaven. Ray sat beside a lava lamp with some Jalisco DL gays sharing a blunt. The lamp's gooey insides obeyed a different gravity. It drew me to the door, and then one of the DL gays waved me over. They invited me in Spanish to sit. They made fun of me being nervous, and then resumed their conversation. Ray was the only one in the group rolling. He stared at me as the others talked, his dry mouth opening and closing, which he then quickly covered up with his hand. Ray rolled his eyes before smiling at me. It worked on me, and I tried focusing on their rapid Spanish while Ray toggled in and out of his DL dad mode. Out of nowhere, he reached over and started rubbing my belly. He looked longingly in my eyes in a way that made me a little sad at first. His rubbing grew rough before I could get distracted by my thoughts. You don't have to work for it, Ray said, interrupting no one. His friends kept on talking. Ray motioned me to leave, or so I thought, but then he pulled me to the side, brought his arms around my waist, and leaned hard into kissing me. He seemed more frantic when I looked at his friends, who were fully engaged in conversation. There was inertia, like I was crossing my circuit party self with whatever Elena's party was. I pulled at his jockstrap and rubbed his flabby butt with both hands, twisting a tuft of black and white hair above his crack. After being with so many guys, this felt coarse, rehearsed. With Ray, I didn't want to be common. Over time, our fragile parts break like a backyard tree that survives families, weather, dumped pork grease. Love has broken us. His jock slipped to his knees and he shook it to the ground as we made out. His dick curved up from the middle to the head, rising among long pubes. In the dark, it resembled a desert flower, wild yucca. His balls were so small, easy to mistake for a flap of leg skin. It was mysterious how everyone else had gone, but we'd maneuvered ourselves into solitude and, somehow, a couch. His pre-cum started to smear across my stomach, loud music in a beaten body. The music was distorted from this distance. To me, it always sounded like a colorful version of plastic wrappers and TV static. Ray let me bite him. His pain turned me on. It turned him on too, and his dick shook vertically like dried nubia flores in the wind, too stiff to move any other way. Good thing I fingered myself earlier because Ray plunged it in. It hurt for a second before pleasure washed over my body. I groaned, almost whimpering, as I curled into the couch, lying on one arm. Shut up, Ray said, and he fucked me harder, and then forced 3 fingers in my mouth. Pandemic life was so crazy. 2 people experiencing the same thing had so much to unpack with one another. Now Ray was sliding all the way out and then all the way in. It feels so fucking good, I said. He kissed me, mounting me so that only his butt moved in the air as we fucked. Our bodies clapped. He was working the sweat out of me in torrents. He was gasping. Then his legs jolted. Fuck, I am getting close, he said. I want you to come. He moved my arm to my crotch, then stopped thrusting. I could hear him panting and wiping the sweat off himself. I put my knees onto the lip of the couch. He set himself up behind me. Once I was hard, he started fucking me again, going in deep as I clung to the cushion. He held my cheeks with his fingers and started moving faster as I started to pulse. It was the best part of being dominated, like his dick was physically dislocating something sick inside. I mean that in the best way. Ray let out a little sigh, as if his stomach pained. He said, slowly tugging at my hair. Se encanta mi verga, se encanta mi verga. I let out a weak groan. Before he could retreat, I came. It was a big load that ended up in the dirt. It sat on top, not really mixing in. Ray stood up. Vamos a ducharnos. I thought we would go inside the house, but he took me to the other side of the yard by the goats, where there was a spigot over a concrete slab. This was where he washed the animals. The water was cold and almost painful when the cylindrical nozzle sprayed it into a hard mist. I jumped the second it hit. Ray held me. A fresh bar of soap emerged out of thin air, and he scrubbed me with it. Sometimes he was more vigorous. It was the only time I had ever bathed outside. I spent the rest of the night in his arms, on the couch, on Molly, as he talked with his friends. That's page 185, at the end of my section.
Thank you so much. We had to mute ourselves, me and my roommate, because we were just bursting up laughing. But it was so, so good. That was perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm a Mexican that doesn't really know how to speak Spanish. So.
Well, I'm on this boat, my friend. We're all learning. We're all learning.
All right.
Yeah. So we have our last reader, my wonderful editor, who guided me through all this with so much faith that it was unbelievable at times. So thank you so much, James, for reading. And now we have Matthew. Matthew is a writer, urbanist, and editor. His novels include Alan Stein, Landscape Memory, and Chloe Yaren's La Cucaracha. He was the literary editor of Nest magazine, co-founder of Publication Studio, and now a reader advisor editor at The Gulp Hole, an online reading and publishing platform that aspires to be a polity of literature. He is also the editor of the Fellow Traveler series. So thank you, Matthew, for closing out the night.
Thank you so much, Josh. Such a pleasure to hear everybody. And I'll read from late in the book. After Ray has disappeared, Elena and Gabe, who's the narrator, are wondering what has happened to Ray. And they go back to the house where the parties happened. The gate was half open and no one had locked the back door. We dusted the bottoms of our shoes, coming in quietly from the empty backyard. The floors and the carpets were visibly cleaned, though at this point, no scientific formula could ever clean them. We had all passed out there so many times. It felt like each room could be suddenly crowded with people. Ray's bedroom was the same, even the old sheets, a pink duvet, and the curving wood headboard that had a dovetail pattern along its rim, but that Elena had destroyed with a baseball bat. Against the wall was a shelf of VHS tapes in beat-up cardboard cases under an acrylic painting of a beach. The water was violet and its painted sides bent around the frame. A vanity dusted with glitter and cluttered with lotions, face creams, and colognes with no brands stood beneath the painting. The spot of carpet where Ray had lain beside the dresser was gone, and the rest of it was scrubbed and pale. Aiden's room, on the other hand, was empty. Only pink paper towels and wads sat on the window ledge. Elena and I sifted through these rooms like newlyweds. Where do you think he went? Elena asked. I don't know. He could have gone anywhere, I said. Maybe the backyard, Elena said. Dirt tracked into the kitchen. Was it a clue? Before leaving, we noticed all the little toys around the house. A brown undies-wearing action figure was wedged into the middle of a chain-link fence. A red chicken laid eggs on the coffee table if you filled it with jelly beans and pressed. Green and blue stuffed monkeys with Velcro hands hung in the bathroom. An alligator lay perfectly sideways against the hallway wall. Next to the toilet was a Rubik's Cube, the color scraped from a few tiles. Some pogs had been turned into a constellation of magnets on the fridge, maybe leading to where Ray had ended up. There was a pink hexagonal ring by the sink. Elena took it with her after trying it on. In the ICU is a firefighter who pulled people out of the Montecito mudslides. In the ICU was a teenager who was raped. There was an imam with beautiful hair and perfect words. There was Ray in the ICU, in a thong with an ice-cold 40. In the ICU was a fat older Latino dude with COVID and sleep apnea, whose family begged to be by his side. In the ICU, Elena stared at the floor as she intuited the Smiths' aesthetics, listening to the same album over and over. There was a guy who failed at suicide twice. There were COVID deniers and vaccinated patients. There was a man in the ICU whose wife wept his name endlessly. There was my carcass, eager to get hammered again after 2 nights of getting hammered and not getting laid. In the ICU, Peter was flirting with another straight dude. He was somehow immune to this place. Peter's friendship with Elena is the most real thing about this book. In the ICU, everyone was stabilizing. The rhythms and pitches of the monitors, the sleeping patients, the footsteps, these sounds brought quiet to the rest of my life. Despite all the cheap shots my coworkers make, oppressors sleep at night, knowing brown people sing hymns of fear and inadequacy to each other. I close my eyes, the one part of myself that I cannot drug. Ray's eyes were brown, with a shade of yellow and dabs of soft red round the bottom. They were the only part of him that showed his age. Every so often, we glimpse something beyond our eyes. We find ourselves in awe of its realness, the way something lies on the ground, or it endures off to the side, and its vulgar regularity feels shockingly true to life. It was easy to see this in plants, as known by those CGI animators who depict wormholes as sequences of devastating rainbows and destructive geometry. Our eyes realize what our minds and hearts can never imagine. I think of porn in this light. If this was politics, some patient would now wake up from their sedation to knife me. A few haters end up in the ICU saying goodbye to their loved ones over FaceTime. It's easy to say that porn is an escape for those who will never have the chance to do so in real life. The fact fags are unafraid bothers haters the most. AIDS proved everything they hate about us. PrEP has to a degree proved otherwise. Other nurses now say the gays only care about Mpox because it scars. Somewhere in all of this was the love logic of medicine. Aiden loved Ray. I like to think that somewhere in one of the storm drains in the Inland Empire, Ray was getting by. I could imagine that Hector and Pelirrojo stopped by his house after not hearing from their dear friend. They managed to get him into Pelirrojo's green Suburban, only for Ray to bolt at the gas station. Having lost him, in turn, they did not want to be found. They didn't want to be part of his mess, which could draw police their way when they were only trying to help. Hector and Pelirrojo owe us nothing. Maybe they took a road trip to Tijuana, somewhere Ray could start out again. While entering the United States was tough, no one ever cared if you were leaving. One of the travel nurses said, I should consider that. I could start out again in Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan. Leaving Ray alone seemed like the right thing. If he wanted to be found, he would show up. There was always a friend who would say, you guys are making a big deal out of nothing. Ray is fine. Elena said this about my ex, though it could apply here. If Ray cannot help himself, what makes you think that you can help him? She also said, I liked guys who make me feel bad about myself, who blame me for things. That might apply here as well. Ray would rather that we forgot about him than feel sorry. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for being here tonight, and thank you for your support. Again, there's free stickers. So DM me if you haven't had a chance to fill out the form, and I'll make sure to get some to you. But it's very emotional night. But thank everyone for being here. Happy holidays. Go party where you can, if you can, as you can. So thank you everyone for being here tonight, and um, have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Bye.